Welcome back to my channel, Gem and Cozy. I haven't made a video in a while, so I wanted to unbox and quality check a bunch of sticky notes that recently arrived and answer a lot of questions that I get about my sticky note making process. I feel like that's one of the most popular questions I get asked, so I thought I could make a video and kind of just direct everyone who has been asking me about vendors and the process over to this video. So let's get started. Let me scoop out a bunch of these so that I actually have things to peel. So why do I use Vistaprint? First, it is located in the US and I am in the US, so it just makes sense for me to try to find a reliable vendor, oh no, that is local, relatively speaking, because that's going to help with shipping times. And I prefer to be able to get replacement orders faster if I have any issues, which comes up a lot for printed products. So those are the main factors. The other reasons I like Vistaprint is because they are a large company, so they have very good customer service. By very good, I mean that they're very easy to work with and they are quick to make sure you get a refund if you're not pleased with your order or replace your order. So I really like that. There are other companies that I have tested out and they will ask me to ship back products and they will try to have me pay for defective products, all of that kind of stuff. So I noticed that Vistaprint has just been very consistent and easy to work with. If I ever have issues with an order and I send them pictures and I let them know, like something like this, for example, where I say, hey, this many of the sticky notes I ordered came damaged, there were bent corners, maybe the ink was grainy, something like that, they will fix it all. So they will send you a replacement or give you the refund, and that just saves me a lot of time. I personally don't really like having to ship back products to companies because I don't really think that it's very efficient. We have to send out more mail, so it's like another box that has to travel, and it's just bad environmentally. And a lot of the times they're doing that in order to just like quality check that product, like figure out what went wrong with the printing, which definitely is beneficial. And I like when companies do that maybe once just to like make sure that their printing isn't like causing any issues. But when they have to do it over and over again, it's likely because they don't want you to keep the defective products. So what they do is they end up trashing it or they will donate it. That's another thing. I didn't know that companies that print products can donate things without your permission. So that's also something that I had to learn about over time and kind of just figure things out as I go. So the best way to find a vendor that you like is to really just try as many vendors as possible. Just because I like a vendor or someone else that you follow likes a vendor, it doesn't mean that they're going to be the best fit for you. So I'm always mindful of this, and I try to just test out smaller quantities of products or see if they have samples available, and I will order from various companies to get an idea of what my experience was like, what their website and interface was like too, and go from there. So I'm on Vistaprint's website right now, and I wanted to show you how it looks. It says custom post-it notes. They're actually 30% off right now, and you can pick the size that you want. I usually do the 3x3 and it has 50 pages. What I really love about Vistaprint is that you can actually just order one at a time if you want, or you could just like order 10, which is really great because a lot of their competitors require a minimum quantity of 100 or even 250 to print a design, but you can experiment at a higher price point through Vistaprint. So I usually get 50 at a time for $1.40 each, and you do have to pay for shipping unless you can find some coupons. Vistaprint does offer a lot of different sales. Like right now it's 30% off, which is why it's showing up at a discounted rate. So normally 50 sticky notes is $99.99, but on sale right now for $69.99. So always look for deals. I find that their process for designing is very straightforward. I draw everything digitally and then I save it as a PNG and I move it over to their design system, and you kind of just have to drag it into place. So it's super duper easy. So here is a design that I already have made, and you can drag the design wherever you'd like for it to fit. I put the design in the corner of the safety area because the safety area is basically what's going to print. So I have noticed that the preview isn't like always accurate, but what I have noticed is that you should always just keep everything you want printed inside the safety area. If you drag it out to like past this corner, it's not going to scale correctly. So that is what I do, and it looks good. So then I go ahead and make sure the preview looks okay, and then you can press next. It'll show you the design, it'll ask you, does everything look okay? And then you can go on from there. So as you guys saw, every time I order from Vistaprint, it comes in a box, and they are not packaged in any kind of plastic. The paper is physically just placed into a cardboard box. So if there is any rain or bad weather, you may experience damage, which has happened to me before, but they will replace it, so it hasn't been an issue so far. I wish they did just like kind of like seal it with something though, like shrink wrap would be great, as I've noticed other companies do that, but Vistaprint does not. Most of the time, the defective products I get are the few that have these like clamp marks in it, and I think that's just from the gluing process. They kind of clamp it together, I think. So there's always a few that have marks like that. So I'll set those aside, and I also like to look at the binding of all of them, like the sides, because sometimes it's messed up and fuzzy. There's ink marks, stains, things like that. If it's mild like those, I don't request replacement, but sometimes it's really bad and like just caked on thick black or red ink, even on the top. And sometimes the speckles show up on the front or the image quality is blurry. So those are things that I watch out for. Everyone will have different standards, like I said. Something else that I noticed about Vistaprint is that they do much better if you print in quantities of 50 or less. I think that they print on a different setting. I've tried to learn more about this information, and I've spoken to representatives, but I could never get an answer. They always tell me that the larger orders are printed in the same way with the same machines as the smaller orders, but I've always noticed whenever I print smaller batches of 50 and less, they print more crisp. They have like a different smell to them that smells like a fresh book. But whenever I order more than 50, they come out blurry and a little grainy, and they also smell more like newspaper. So that's been my experience so far, and I noticed that that is consistent across the board with all of the 3M post-it brand companies that I've printed with, and I don't know how to get around it. So if any of you guys know more about printing processes and maybe about these companies, I would love to pick your brain about it, because I tend to have to print smaller batches in order to get around that. And as I continue to grow, that's been a struggle because I really can't fix those issues if they continue to happen, especially since I want to keep sticky notes in my shop. So I'm just really transparent with my customers. I run a monthly stationery club on Patreon, so one of the tiers, actually two of the tiers, offers sticky notes, and sometimes they don't print to the quality that I would like, but there's no way that I can ask them to reprint it, a second, third time within the same month when they have to be mailed out to the patrons in that month. So sometimes it works out when I request a replacement, but most of the time nowadays it doesn't, because I'm printing 250 plus at this point, and there just seems to be more room for error. I recently worked with a company and got a bunch of sticky notes printed, and everything came out grainy. Luckily, one set wasn't too bad, but the other one to me is kind of noticeable. They are still functional sticky notes, like each page will still be sticky, but the quality of the art won't be as crisp, which is upsetting since my stationery shop is all of my original artwork. So I do try to offer the best quality to everyone, especially because if a customer got a few sticky notes for their first order and then later on got more sticky notes, but the quality was different, that would be upsetting. So I don't like that. Um, so I'm doing my best. Look how clean those look. That looks great. So this is a nice clean batch. Oh, this is what I meant by the red ink. So like, if it's a little bit like that one, I don't mind. But like that's excessive, especially if you're trying to gift it to someone. Like I find that kind of looks bad. So what I do is I set these aside. I'll take a picture of it. I'll send it to Vistaprint and say, "Hey, like some of my products came with defects." And I send them the pictures, I explain what happened, and what they'll do is send me a replacement. If it's a lot of sticky notes, I request a replacement. If it's just a few, I prefer to just request a partial refund to be more economic so that they don't have to ship out another order of like 5 sticky notes. So that's sloppy. So I'll set that aside. I know a lot of people don't mind it, and what I do with the grade B defects is I offer mystery bundles, and I will put random sticky notes into the bundles at a discounted price. I also sometimes offer them in grade B for a discounted price. And I also just like to give them away as freebies for larger orders or orders from teachers, people who tell me they're getting gifts for their coworkers. I tend to add in an extra sticky note from time to time. That's kind of my favorite way to share the love. So that's what I do. For example, I got these ordered in a quantity of 250, and they look good from afar, but they all printed kind of grainy and blotchy, which makes me so sad because if I show you guys the quality of the ones that just arrived, you guys will be so surprised. So I got these ordered again in a smaller batch. They printed so nice and crisp. You can see all the characters and their eyes and all the details. Here is the one that misprinted, and although from a distance they look pretty similar, when you see it up close, you can tell that the top one is more grainy, more fuzzy, and the eyes and the smaller details aren't as clear. So all of the ink is just fuzzier, but it's a functional sticky note. Sticky notes are one of my best sellers, but they have one of the worst profit margins. And I'm just being honest with you guys. If you aren't able to print a lot of them at once, it is very costly to print, and pricing it can be really challenging because most people aren't going to want to spend a lot of money on sticky notes, especially because you can get the blank ones in like a 3-pack or a 5-pack for a couple bucks. So, generally speaking, most artists that I know sell their sticky notes for $5 or $6, and that's the 3x3. And I sell mine for $5 right now. But if you're ordering 10 at a time, let's say, and you're spending, 250, 275 per sticky note, and then you have to pay for taxes, shipping, and then everything else. Like you drew it, you designed it, so you want to compensate yourself for the time. You have shop fees, you have listing fees, all of that as an online business. Making 50% isn't actually 50% if you put it that way. After all of the cuts and deductions, if you offer free shipping or you don't charge for your shipping supplies like I do, again, things that you don't make from selling a sticky note. So the main reason I keep the sticky notes around is because everyone loves them and I have so much fun making them, but they are not a super profitable product. Luckily, there are other products that have better margins, so I feel like it kind of evens out sometimes in those ways. But at the end of the day, like I'm still making the sticky notes, but unless you have the ability to print, 200 to like 500 at a time, it's harder to make a good profit off of them. So that's my process and behind the scenes on how I make sticky notes for my stationery shop, Gem and Cozy. Let me know if you want to see the behind the scenes on anything else at Gem and Cozy, and I'll catch you guys next time.